Welcome, everyone. I'm Sue Barber, author, former IT director for a Fortune 500 company, turned executive coach, and this is the Visibility Factor podcast, where we explore how to raise your visibility and play bigger at work and in life. We'll explore key topics and welcome guests that help you shift your thinking about yourself so you can see new possibilities for your leadership. I'm on a mission to create a visibility movement for leaders to show their value and be seen for their true talent. Are you ready to take the next step towards a higher level of visibility for yourself? Let's go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Visibility Factor podcast. This is Sue Barber, your host. I'm so excited today to bring you my guest, Limor Bergman Gross, who's focused on helping technical leaders, especially women, navigate male-dominated industry. She also has a podcast called From a Woman to a Leader, and I was a guest on her podcast, which will be coming out in the summer. And I'm excited for her to have this conversation with us because I think she has a unique perspective and can share a lot of good ideas for our leaders who are listening. So welcome to the show, Limor. I'd love to have you introduce yourself.
Hi, Sue. Pleasure to be here. And hi, everyone. So my name is Limor Bergman Gross. My background is software development. I started my career as a software engineer and I grew into leadership. And so I was a manager, senior manager, director of engineering, and along the way built a family. I have 4 children. I'm married. We moved countries, a lot of adventures along the way. And our last big adventure was when we decided to go back home after 9 years in the US, and home is Israel for us. And then when we decided to go back home, I decided to leave corporate and start a business. And my business is around helping leaders in tech, especially women, as you mentioned, Sue. That's my passion. I want to help more women, not because necessarily only women needs help, because I've been asked that, but because we need to see more women in executive roles. And I see myself as part of that mission.
Love that mission. I believe in that as well. And I think it's so important for especially the younger generations to see people who look like them, right, in those leadership roles and see that it's possible for them to get there as well. So I think it's an amazing, amazing mission for you to have. Where do you feel like your biggest challenge was when you were in those roles in corporate? What were your biggest challenges?
I think the biggest thing that held me back was that I was not vocal about what I wanted, and I was waiting for permission. I was waiting for someone to notice me and say, "Hey, Limor, great work. Now you're ready for the next whatever challenge maybe."
Yeah, I definitely understand that one as well. And where do you think that happened for you?
Nation of probably personality and cultural background, right? I mean, I think in general, and I'm hugely generalizing here, women are more kind of waiting for permission than men. At least that's what I've seen, both of myself and others. And also, it's a personality trait. I mean, I'm a quiet, introverted person, and I was raised on the values that you should work hard, and then you'll get rewarded, and that's what I try to implement as well.
Yes, we had similar paths there as well. I think it was important at the time to have the strong work ethic and all of that, but at some point it starts to hold you back and you don't even realize it. I think you're doing the right things, right?
I think it worked at the beginning, but it was holding me back. Yeah, a few years
later on. Yeah, I think it's good as an individual contributor because you're trying to perform and build credibility and show that you can do the job and it makes sense there. It's when you're trying to climb the ladder to something more and have a team and a lot more responsibility, you need to be able to shift. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about what was it that you did in your early career that helped you achieve success and that had people recognize you, that you were ready for the next thing?
I think I was curious. I was eager to learn. So when I graduated gazillion years ago from university, university really didn't equip me with the knowledge I needed to do the job. I'll be completely honest. And I started and I knew nothing. Yes, I knew basic data structures and algorithms and all that, but like on the job, I didn't know much. And I was curious. I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn more things. I wanted to experiment. I was not afraid of a technical challenge. And I think that's what helped me. And actually, reflecting back then I didn't think myself that way, but reflecting back, I was brave because I was always putting myself in uncomfortable situations, right? With men, only men I worked with. Very smart engineers. Many times they were much more experienced than me, and I wanted to be there. I wanted to be part of that. And I think that's what helped me.
Yeah. I mean, curiosity is a great thing, right? I think just being able to ask questions and not be afraid to ask questions, and even be able to ask the challenging questions. I think that's sometimes what people almost need permission for, is how can I ask a challenging question that doesn't make me seem rude or make me seem like I'm being difficult, but is a question that needs to be asked. And, for myself, that took some time for me to figure it out too, because I was always trying to come up with the perfect question. And I think for especially women, I really want to ask this question. I know it's important, but I'm not sure if I'll be judged, criticized, put down, in the room, especially if it's a room of people who have more experience than you do. Have you seen that too?
For sure. I actually was mostly afraid to be seen as stupid.
Stupid. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Everyone knows it. I should have known that. I should know that, right? I mean, this was usually before asking a question, that was the first thought in my head. Oh my God, I'm going to make a fool out of myself because I should probably know that.
Yep. I definitely had that too. Yes. All those crazy stories we have in our head that do not help us. So what was it that happened? I think there's always a pivotal moment in people's careers where something happens and you start to realize that this isn't working. What was it for you that helped you make that pivot for yourself into something bigger?
Yeah, and the pivotal moment for me was actually a promotion, which sounds kind of weird, right? So I was on a business trip in North Carolina, in Raleigh-Durham area. Have you been there? It's beautiful.
I have, yes.
And I won't forget it. I got a phone call from my manager at the time, and my manager was very excited to tell me that I was promoted to a staff engineer. And for those of you who are not coming from tech background, like staff engineer is very kind of, senior level. And back then at the company I was working at, it was equivalent to an engineering manager. So you grew as an engineer until at a certain point you could either grow in a leadership path or in an individual contributor, like more subject matter expert path. And eventually my manager decided for me that I will grow in the subject matter expert path. And I was excited at first. Yeah, I was promoted, more money, and all that. But I started thinking about it and I said, is this really what I want? Do I see myself staying in this path? And I looked at staff engineers around me, senior staff engineers, distinguished engineers, and I said, that's not who I want to become. That was the moment for me I realized, what have I done wrong? And what do I need to change?
Yeah. And so that wasn't a promotion that you put in for then. They just decided for you that this is going to be the thing?
Yes.
Wow. Did you have a conversation with your manager saying, this is my career path, this is where I want to go?
Never before that. Never. I never said what I wanted. That was the problem.
Yeah. Same thing. I think it's really interesting. And that's what I'm trying to help people understand is you do have to advocate for yourself and talk about what you want. And I think the challenge that I've seen, I'd be interested to see from your perspective too, is that they don't have enough clarity and they feel like they have to, I don't know, come up with the perfect role. And sometimes there isn't the perfect role. It's more about what are the things you want to do in a role. I want to lead people. I want to have influence. I want to, make decisions. I want to be at the table, whatever that looks like for you. And I think that is the hesitancy is I don't know what job I want, but I kind of have an idea of what I want to do. And so I'll tell them, just start talking about those things. You don't have to have an ideal defined role because sometimes maybe that role doesn't exist yet and you could do it.
Yeah, Actually, interesting enough, I had a new client starting today with me, and she told me, she started our conversation with, I want to be a manager. And we ended the conversation with basically a realization that she wants to grow, she wants to expand her impact, she wants to do things that are more challenging, more interesting. Management, maybe, not so sure about that. So I think you're right, Sue. Like, don't be bogged down too much with the title, with the specific role, rather than what excites you. What will challenge look like? What will doing something bigger look like? And yeah, you don't have to name it. You just need to think about what excites you. What are you doing very well? Where are your strengths? What impact do you want to make?
Yeah, and that I just don't think that's something that people teach enough. I'll say maybe they may talk about it here and there, but I think for me, being told I wasn't being visible enough was shocking because I thought I was being visible. Thank goodness there are people who are willing to give honest feedback and help people start to navigate that. If you are struggling, ask some questions of yourself and get some feedback from other people so that you can make a good decision for yourself.
For sure. And I would say, looking back at, I think most of my managers were not really good at giving good feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning feedback I could actually take action upon, something meaningful. Yeah, you're not visible. I wouldn't consider that a feedback because it's so vague. What does visible mean? What do I need to do in order to be visible? I was told I'm not strategic. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But what do I need to do in order to be more strategic? What does strategic, look like? And those things, very few managers actually know how to quantify and to give you a path, to give you some direction you can actually execute on. And I think that's the most challenging part. And managers don't do that because they're bad people or mean. It's just sometimes not easy.
Yeah. I don't think those things are easy to define. And you're totally right, because that's what that person told me and did not give me any other insights into what I could do differently.
Yeah.
But I found someone else who was really good at helping me understand what I could do. Do you think in any way, as a technical leader, you go into school, you get your degree, do all the things to be a technical leader, but you may not ever think about leading people. You might think about leading projects or programs, but leading people has a whole different skill set.
Yeah, I think that especially technical people, we lean more towards solving hard problems, towards executing, and less about helping others and leading others. And those are different skill sets. And actually, I talked about it last week in a conference. I was running a workshop of the transition between IC to a manager and to a director. It's really requires you to look at things very differently, from your own output to your team outputs, and letting go of control, of solving problems yourself or telling people. How many tech leaders tell you what to do? Oh, this is the problem. This is what we need to do. Most tech managers, that's what they will do. But actually, good leadership is not about telling someone what to do. It's helping them grow, is coaching them. And it's a different skill set.
Mm-hmm. In the companies that you've worked with or been in, has that been something that you've seen being implemented for tech leaders to give them those skill sets, or are they kind of on their own?
I haven't seen anything structured around that. I think it was either you were lucky enough to have a good manager that has good coaching skills or not. But I did see mentoring, right? I mean, companies running mentoring programs. Like you mentioned, you found eventually someone else who was willing to mentor you.
Yeah.
Companies invest in coaching. So sometimes I think companies realize that sometimes your manager may not be equipped or maybe too busy sometimes to help you, and you need extra support.
Yeah. Definitely true in my case. So I was really happy to have, and she was actually in the business side. She wasn't in IT. So I think that also helped. And she had a different perspective to offer, which I was really grateful for. So you and I both had these pivotal moments. What do you think is the risk for those leaders who either don't recognize the situation that they're in or they don't know how to get out of it. What do you think the risk is to an organization where leaders are holding themselves back?
I think stagnation, just staying stuck, which eventually leads to frustration and motivation issues and lower output.
Yes.
I've seen people mostly driven by growing and very frustrated when they're not. And no matter how much money you'll put on that, how many, equity, compensation, bonuses, that's not going to fix the problem. That's never going to be the solution. Even though a lot of times it's the easiest one to recognize people. But helping someone realize what they are really good at and helping them grow, that's what's going to keep them. Because people who are growing are going to be happy. They will not want to go anywhere else.
Yes. Especially, I think the more recent generations too, they really want to be developed. And I think that is a struggle. I mean, of course, they want compensation. Everybody wants that too.
Of
But
course.
yeah, not everybody's driven or motivated by money. And at least for me, I was always like, am I doing something bigger? Am I doing something transformational? Am I getting new opportunities, getting uncomfortable? Even though I didn't always enjoy the uncomfortable situations I was in, I know that those taught me the most because I had to learn how to do something different. And I think that's just an opportunity for all leaders. Anyone who's listening who has a team, are you making them uncomfortable? Are you helping them grow? Are you giving them opportunities to really develop and get in front of other leaders and learn how to communicate in a way that's more strategic and helps people see them and what they have to offer? Or are you jumping in and helping too much and giving them the answers? That's the opportunity for leaders, is to let go. And I know that's not easy. I'm saying that in my own experience of having to let go is not easy. But it is the most important, I think, for leaders who are under you to be able to grow themselves.
Sure. And you mentioned the younger generation. So I had an opportunity to lead people in their 20s when I was in my 40s. So it was a generational gap, right? And I noticed that they are super ambitious. They look at tenure and authority much differently than we used to, right? At least when I started in the workplace, tenure was a thing, right? It was respected even, and authority was respected. And nowadays it's not, I wouldn't say that it's not respected, but it's not enough. And people are ambitious and they want to be recognized for what they do and for the impact they make, regardless of how many years they're doing a specific role, and they want it faster. So you really need to work harder in order to keep them interested and engaged. And the tricky part is to also identify what matters to each person, because each person is different. And each person is going to be excited by something else.
Yeah. That was one of the first things I would do when I'd take over a team. I'd meet with each of them and say, what motivates you? Because I think you need to have that in your back pocket and ready to go when you need to motivate them for something in the future. And knowing that helped me with so many things, I think, as well as just understanding them a little bit more, right? That having that people side, I think, helped me so much and helped me maybe set myself apart from other leaders who really only cared about just getting things done, the delivery, the results, the due dates, all that stuff. I'm like, okay, but you've got people here. They're killing themselves for you. Are you okay with that? And I think that is a risk in the tech space, because you are often hitting very, I'll say, aggressive timelines. Honestly, I loved when we were about to go into production. When we were about to implement something, I always found that to be pretty exciting. But it's not for everybody.
So I just wanted to say that part of the manager job is also to be able to protect their teams and push back on unrealistic expectations. And that's another very hard thing to do, because you want to please your leadership, you want to execute, you want to deliver, but sometimes you have to set some boundaries.
Yes. And I think that comes back to that challenging questions, but in this case, a challenging opinion, right, of what you need to do. I remember the first time we were letting someone go in the team and I was asked to take over that project. And I said, I'll do that. But our timeline just extended like 3 to 6 months. I forget what I gave him. I said, that timeline is now moved. So as long as we're all on the same page about that, I'll do it. And he was like, no problem. So, I mean, I think it's just, actually saying that this is what needs to happen for us to have success.
Yeah.
So let's talk about confidence and where the lack of confidence or maybe some challenges with confidence show up, especially as you're trying to climb into more senior roles.
I think lack of confidence shows, first of all. It doesn't matter what you say. When you don't feel a sense of, accomplishment, that you're good at what you do, other people see that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important. And the best way to do it, in my opinion, is to surround yourself with people who will support you and help you, and refrain from toxic people. That's another thing, right? Because a lot of times you work with people who really bring you down, and it's really hard.
Yeah, it just kills your energy and makes it more difficult. One of the things I've seen, I'm curious if you see this too, is around showing up, right? Where you sit in the room, how you have conversations with people, what you say or don't say. And to me, I don't think I realized I was doing this for a long time, but it's even in the words that you're using that might dismiss or devalue the work that you're doing and yourself or your team. And that tells a story to other people, right? Whether you realize it or not, you're giving them the narrative that you have about yourself. And so I think that is something that, that's why I built the workbook, because I realized how many people were devaluing themselves before someone else could even do it. Like, okay, you have value, but you're not demonstrating that value to anyone else. How have you seen that play out?
Yeah, for sure. So first of all, as you mentioned, like where you sit, how you sit. I mean, nowadays many people work remote, but
True.
when you
Yes.
sit in a meeting room, like taking space, that's like first, right? Sometimes I was sitting, you know how it is, like sometimes you're trying to come in many people in a conference room, and then you have people sitting, around the table, and there are some people sitting in the back. I was the one in the back usually.
Same.
You're saying, oh, I'm less important.
Right.
Even I haven't said anything, right? Just where I sat gives the message I'm less important.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying like try to fight people over where you sit, and sometimes it's in Zoom, so it doesn't matter anyway. But just sit straight, like the posture, how you sit. If you're in a virtual meeting, turn on your camera, look at the camera, right? Be there, be present. Because a lot of times people turn off their cameras, and I think they're missing a lot on that. Just be there, be present. And as you mentioned, Sue, I think the language matters. What you say matters, not apologetic. I only wanted to say this. I think that if we did this, so don't apologize. From what I learned, I think what I observed is, say things that are, I'm not saying rude. Don't say, okay, I disagree, you're stupid, whatever. We have seen that too. But say it in a way that like, yeah, I'm hearing you. I have a different perspective I want to share. And just stand behind it. And so I am not talking a lot as a person in general. The volume, and the number of words is not the only thing that matters, but what you say. And I noticed, on my experience, that I was really appreciated for saying something else, for providing a different perspective. That was really appreciated. So don't be afraid to do that.
Yeah, it's not about talking more. It's about what you have to say, making it very high quality. And I think when you don't talk a lot, when you do speak up, it matters a lot more. It's just heard in a very different way. And I love the way that you framed some of those examples. And sometimes you have to slow down and really be mindful of the fact that I need to say this in a different way to be heard. And if you want to be heard, that is an important piece of that.
Sure. not just be heard, but considered as a relevant voice.
Yeah, like an equal in the room. I was in the back of the room and I had to learn how to sit at the big table. So that was a big shift for me too. Definitely. I think because then I had to have something to talk about and I had to be prepared. So, I mean, it did force me out of my comfort zone for sure. Okay. So let's talk about, we've been kind of talking about working in a male dominated environment, and you might be one of the few or only women in the room. So what do you think helps them? We just talked about language and sitting at the table, but are there other things that you think help them really show that they belong there, or how to advocate for themselves?
I think allyship goes a long way. Allyship, finding those people who will back you up, who will support you, both in the room and when you're not in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And so first of all, like having sponsors, I didn't know that they are called sponsors, but, I had people who spoke on my behalf several times, right? I mean, I built relationship with people who trusted me, who appreciated me, and they spoke on my behalf. And that caused promotions and, other things, right? Just being considered and appreciated more. And during the meeting, having people who really were there for me. I had several occasions, I'll tell you, so that some people were toxic and was not talking nice and dismissive. And what helped me was that someone was putting them in their place. Someone that is not me, because I felt very uncomfortable, right? In general, I don't like to fight with people. I try to be respectful. I'm not coming with a huge ego. And when I'm confronted with that behavior, with the kind of a bullying even behavior, right? I mean, it doesn't always have to be very extreme. It can be even very minor, but even a word or a sentence can be devastating, both to your confidence and how you're perceived. And having someone else in the room say, hey, that's not the way to handle the conversation. Let's try to be, more respectful. That really helps.
I love that, because that also hopefully incents more people to have conversations, build relationships, and have those people really understand who you are and the value that you bring and the impact that you can make. I think if you're not doing enough to make that happen, then you may not have those allies in the room to be there for you and to support you. Sometimes what I found is someone will have an opinion, and what I used to say to them, and some of the other leaders in my group would say, is, how long ago was that situation? Sometimes people are holding on to situations that happened 3 years ago. They haven't really spent any time with you since then. Well, you could have done a whole lot of growth since then, a lot of development, and they're still holding on to a situation that happened 3 years ago that really doesn't even matter anymore in the big scheme of things. So I think it's good to get context too about their opinion and where that happened and how long ago it was. It's fascinating to me how many people hold on to stuff from years ago that is really no longer important.
Yeah, I love that. Because a lot of times it's emotional, it's not logical.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So let's think about, what would the Limor of now tell the younger Limor who is starting out in her career? What would you tell yourself?
Wow, a lot of things. But probably I would say, first of all, be you. Don't try to be someone else. Don't compare yourself. Be happy with who you are and proud of who you are. And the second thing would be more intentional. Be more intentional about what you want. Spend some time thinking about what you want. Build relationship and externalize what you want to your manager. Probably if I did that earlier in my career, things would have been better, and I would save myself several years and the heartache that came with it.
So if somebody who is listening to this is feeling a bit overlooked, feeling like no one is listening to them, that they aren't sure what to do next, what advice would you give them?
Yeah. First of all, assess the situation. Why do you feel overlooked? By who? And first, it would be, what could you do differently? We need to start with ourselves, right? Are there opportunities to do something else, something better? Like we discussed in this call, right? Is there anything? And then we can look at, who do I need to build relationship? It's all about eventually, the impact you make, how you talk about it, who you share it to, and who you build relationship with. And assess, the relationships that you have and those you don't have, and who do you need to work on building stronger bonds with. And how can you do it in a way that is natural, that helps them, that helps the business?
Great advice. And is there anything else I didn't ask you about that you generally talk to clients about, or that you have seen that would help anyone in the audience who's struggling?
The thing that I want to kind of make sure people understand here is that everything that we talked about here requires you to still stay you. Appreciate yourself and love yourself the way you are, because for years, I didn't. I thought that something is wrong with me. I'm so quiet. I'm not as aggressive as everyone else. I'm not as assertive. I was beating myself up a lot. Stop beating yourself up. Appreciate you. Appreciate the qualities you have. Those are actually things that are meaningful and valuable.
Couldn't agree more. You just have to start thinking about yourself differently. And then all of these other things will happen as a result of that. But right now, if you are like Limor and I, who didn't believe that we belonged, or, beat ourselves up for the things that we thought we needed to have, and we probably really didn't, I think it's really natural to then show that to other people, because that's what you think about yourselves. So I love that advice. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure. My pleasure.
All right. So we're going to shift into the 4 questions that I ask every guest on the show. So I'm excited to hear your answers. The first one is, what do you think visibility is, and why did you answer that way?
What do I think visibility is making sure that your impact is seen by others, not just by you.
Mm-hmm.
And I always emphasize impact, not what you do, not the tasks, what impact you make, making sure others understand it and appreciate it.
I love the appreciated part too. That's great. What are you doing to be visible?
Okay, so I'm working really hard on doing something super uncomfortable, speaking at conferences. So last week I was in Prague. I led a workshop in a conference, in an engineering leadership conference I said about the transition between IC to manager. And next week I'm going to give a keynote at a conference in Zurich for DevOps. Super uncomfortable to me. I'll tell you that. Every time I'm giving a talk, I'm anxious. It's not comfortable, but that's the way for me to be visible.
Love that. And I totally understand that uncomfortableness as well. I think we have a lot in common, Limor. What is the best leadership or career advice you've received?
Trust your instincts. That was told to me when I was a first-time manager, not by my manager, by the way, but by a mentor. I was preparing for my first kind of big travel, leading a strategic collaboration with a partner. And I had so many self-doubts. And he said, trust your instincts. That was the best advice I got.
I'm so glad he told you that. And then the last one is, what is a book you would recommend to the listeners?
Wow, there's so many books. If I had to pick one, I would say The Leader Who Had No Title by Robin Sharma. I recommend it a lot because it differentiates between leadership and a role, which I think a lot of people, and especially women, we get too bogged down with the title. A leader can be anyone, even an intern. And I face that personally. I've seen interns who are exercising leadership. So that's the book I recommend.
I love Robin Sharma books. So I'm glad you brought that one. No one's brought that one up on the show before. So I'm glad you did. How can people connect with you, get in touch with you if they want to learn more about what you're doing in the world?
Yeah. 2 ways, LinkedIn and Substack. Either way.
Excellent. And I
Yeah.
know we're now friends on Substack, so I'm glad
Yeah.
that we connected there. Excellent. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And really, I hope everyone hears how passionate we both are about helping technical leaders really shine and play bigger. And I love that you're doing that. And I love that you're getting out there in the world and helping at conferences and helping them see that they have new possibilities for themselves if they're willing to, be more intentional and try some things that may be uncomfortable for them, which we all understand, but that's how you grow. So I love that.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, Sue.
Yes, excellent. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for joining today on the Visibility Factor podcast, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks so much for listening to the Visibility Factor podcast. Remember that visibility starts with small steps that are intentional and consistent each day. Be bold, be visible, be the leader you were meant to be. Find us and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. Follow us on all of our social media platforms, which are highlighted in the show notes. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Visibility Factor podcast.